expert, the guy. Matty's got jokes and a wild ride. 30 minutes, no time to spare. Stack your lineup, win anywhere. SuperCoach Halfa, get your edge, get faster. Taylor leads, Matty's laughter. NFL SuperCoach Halfa.
For the Aussie Gridiron Network, welcome back to another NFL SuperCoach Halfa. This is our 11th episode, and you're in luck because, as you've come to expect, we tear through the most traded out and traded in players this week. Well, we can. We also try to just get through some questions from our wonderful SuperCoach mailbag. By we, I've actually got a little bit of sad news I need to disclose. It's me, Matty C, and I'll be taking you on this journey, but it'll be a strange ride without Australia's finest fantasy analyst of all persuasions, Taylor. He will be back in no time, though, to keep the good times rolling, and in the meantime, it's sadly, you're just stuck with me, only the lonely this week. Firstly, though, I want to thank all of you for your support of our wonderful little show. Look, it's been less than 3 months since Taylor wrote to me saying he had this big idea to talk about this whole new NFL SuperCoach game, and here we are with a brilliant new community of Aussies playing SuperCoach or NFL Fantasy who've now got a home to join both those passions, and we're just hoping that this show is becoming the place that you want it to be, because at the end of the day, this is your show and we really value your feedback. So if you wanted to drop us a line to give us any ideas about what you'd like the show to be doing, or if we could be doing more of something or less of something, and we'd really value the feedback. And Taylor, I know I speak on behalf of him when I say we're just so grateful for all the wonderful support that we've had since bringing the show on, and all the great involvement that you've then gone on to pour into our network. We have G'day Gridiron that operates a midweek show, and then also a show on the weekend to react to things and then preview. They get into some betting, all these great things. A bunch of great Aussies doing that show. Of course, Taylor and I also have the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show, which you can find on a Friday and also on a Sunday, which gets you all ready for the fantasy version of NFL. And of course, this beautiful show. So thank you so much for supporting all of it. This community deserves rewards too. So we've got a SuperCoach League for those in our community, and that winner is going to bag some kick-ass prizes. We'd arranged that the winner of our SuperCoach Halfa podcast league is going to win a custom NFL jersey. You can get your favourite player if you want, or maybe even just one who brought you the most success this year, who might just stroke your heartstrings a little bit. But you can pick whoever you like. We'll organise for that to be what gets delivered to you. Plus, you'll also pick up a few kick-ass little bits and bobs from our Aussie Gridiron Network merch store, so you can just help support and rep this great little network that brings you all these great shows, including the Aussie NFL SuperCoach Halfa. Join the league now too if you haven't, and urge your mates to. The code, and I'll pop it in the top of the notes for this show, wherever you listen to this podcast, but that code is 962235. Hop in there if you're not already. If you've got mates who are playing NFL SuperCoach who aren't in there, get them in there. Somebody's going to win it, so hop in. Currently, we like to go through every week and talk about the top 5 in that league. Currently, number 1 overall, Haka Blitz. This is our great SuperCoach, Ray. He has, check this out, and compare yourself to this, 3,028 points. He's tearing it up. Haka Blitz. I'd be terrified of a blitz of Hakas. I'm only a little guy. But well done, Ray. 3,028 points is top. And then Towns Villain. And we cleared this up last week. Reese had been kind of into us saying, Taylor keeps calling me the Towns Villain instead of Towns Villain. We cleared that up. But he's cracked 3,000 as well. 3,008 points. EC Weapons, which is run by Arangi. He holds third. He's bang on 3,000 points. Well done, mate. And then Shooters Tour, which I love this name. But also, this is the first week Shooters Tour has made an appearance in the top 5 this year. Well done, Jesse. Must have had a great week in week 6, 2,992 points and 95 metres, which I guess that's a great reference to being 100 yards. I don't know. Run by Josh. Got almost as many as 4th place, 2,991. So imagine being 1 point behind 4th when you got this many points. So look, keep up the great work. And this thing's never over, right? I was cruising along having a great week a couple of weeks ago, and I was doing well overall in the season. Last week was an absolute howler for me, and my team went and laid a bunch of eggs, numerous dirty turdy eggs, and it kind of brought me back to the pack a lot in terms of the groups that I'm in, and also overall in all of SuperCoach. But it is an annual sport with a winner at the end of the year. You need to get there a week at a time, though. So it takes a lot of patience and a lot of work to keep those wheels spinning, and this is a place to get a whole bunch of information and support around that. Just remember, though, if your week was a raging success or a screaming bucket of assholes, you might only be 1 minute away from the exact opposite, and neither are a death sentence. Some information to keep handy that I'm going to reference a lot for this upcoming week's show too in this next 30 minutes will help you navigate some of that too. There is this great thing that the NFL does. Each team gets one bye week. We're used to, in the NRL, teams having 3. In the Aussie rules, there's definitely bye weeks. In the NFL, everyone gets 1, right? So once they've had it, you've sailed it, and those players, if you take injury out of the question, will be available for you every minute of the way the rest of the season. Thing is that in the next 2 weeks, we've got some pretty heavy bye week action. Clearly, Baltimore and Buffalo, they've got some high-value fantasy players are on their bye this week, right? That's week 7. No worries, it's only 2 teams. That's not a death sentence. Next week in week 8, we're missing 6 teams. Come on, give us a chance. 6 teams. Thank goodness a few of them are the Raiders and the Jaguars, who kind of are a little lighter on when it comes to stars, but I guess Brock Bowers at a position of real scarcity is a kind of painful one there. Then here's some teams which have a few players that we may miss. Guys like the Lions, the Seahawks, and the Rams. Also, the Cardinals will be on bye. So that is a huge portion of the league away next week, and especially when you combine it with week 9, the following week, when you lose Browns and Jets. Yeah, I know, boo fucking who. But also the Eagles and the Buccaneers. Now, they've got far more players who we're going to rely on down the stretch. So brace yourselves. That is a third of the league off between week 8 and week 9. So it's no surprise I'm going to be talking a bit about that and what happens with your lineup as you navigate those in these coming weeks, while we're talking about folks who are traded in and out tonight. Hey, look, no better place to start than teams who are trading their players out and who they're trading in. So this will give options to those who are having a battle and looking to get that resurgence happening, but also has the ability to keep that loom of success spinning for people. The most traded out player at the moment, and no surprise, right, is Emeka Egbuka. He has to go. We don't really know how far away he is. It's a hamstring, so we know it's likely to be multiple weeks. We circled him already, though, because we know that he went from weirdly having this dream situation where we were terrified when he was a rookie that he was going into the situation where Mike Evans, who's like only a future Hall of Famer, is there. Chris Godwin, to start the season, we weren't sure if he was going to be there or not, how far he would be away. And we also feared that last year's rookie, Jalen McMillan, was going to be ahead of him on the depth chart. And then Jalen McMillan got hurt pretty badly at the end of preseason games. So then all of a sudden, it's like Moses parted the sea. This is what Taylor says, that all of a sudden, all those barriers were just lifted, and Egbuka was immediately their number 2 wide receiver behind Mike Evans. Then, of course, Mike Evans has missed 3 games with that big hamstring injury, and it's just kind of made Egbuka even more valuable. Well, now with his own hamstring injury and a lot of that situation already starting to close down, we think it is a great time to cut and run from Emeka Egbuka. He has done the right thing. He's made you a bunch of money, and he scored you a bunch of points. But it's time, right? When he gets back, Mike Evans is already returning this week. Chris Godwin returned last week. McMillan likely not terribly far away. He might return ahead of McMillan on the depth chart just because of his proven success. But even that still makes him the 3rd target in this offense. And it may not be enough to sustain. He made a bunch of money from him, and it seems like the wise thing to do is sell him. And there's been somewhere in the range of 1,700 super coaches make that move. I endorse the move. I definitely understand why you're doing it. The second most traded out player is Puka Nacua. Now, his injury is day-to-day. Problem is, they're about to fly to London, and you'll know about whether they think he's much of a chance to go, about whether he boards that plane or not. They've already ruled 2 players out in their defense, and at this stage of recording on a Wednesday, we haven't heard any news about whether Puka's likely to miss that flight. So I've got this confidence he's going to make the flight, and I think that puts him in line to be on track to play. I don't know that you would drag him across there if he wasn't, especially knowing that you've got the bye week next week. So if he makes that flight, I'd consider him start worthy. Not a big fan of that trade out, because partly it's not even the injury. I kind of feel like that he had a really light week this week scoring because he wasn't on the field that much. And to send him out now when he's clearly the best receiver in the NFL for getting targets and receptions, he will score you touchdowns. He's just a point machine. Trading him out now sounds a little bit rage trade-ish to me. And at the cost you're paying, especially when you've got to prepare for the Buy-Mageddon coming up. I don't really understand why you do that. And I say this a bit too, is that I get nervous that super coaches are trading away so swiftly when a player's like situation with health or whatever in the short term gets a little bit rocky. Because what I worry about is that they potentially are going to leave themselves with no room to maneuver with trades later in the year. And to me, unless Puka was like, we knew he was going to be out for a period of weeks, then I just can't see a scenario where I really want my team to not have him if I've already got him in. He's the kind of player that you want to own. So I don't really understand it. He's the second most traded out player, and I feel like this would be something I'd like to think maybe super coaches might reflect on later in the week and go back and just undo, because this is the kind of player you want on your roster for the rest of the year. The third most traded out player is Josh Allen. Now, he hasn't been fantastic the last couple of weeks. Now he goes on bye. I had considered him a season hold, and like up until this week, I'd been running him out there too, but I'm actually going to punt him this week too. So I'll talk about my trades later on. So it means like I totally understand it, because he's $25 million and he hasn't been playing like that, and now he's not even there this week. So if you can shift him for someone of similar money, or he gives you the opportunity to trade down a little bit and increase at a different position, like you can move into Jaden Daniels or something like that and just improve a wide receiver a notch, I definitely get it. But knowing that he is heading to the bye, I'm really hoping that means by week 8, when folks are back off Buy-Mageddon, then I'm hoping that on week 8, when folks are off on Buy-Mageddon, that if you do choose to hold, that he should be back to his regular self. There's this weird cycle the Bills do where they start hot, they get into this weird funk, and then they emerge mid-season with their like playoff erection on, and then they have a heartbreaking loss in the playoffs, which we're not playing through to. But in the NFL playoffs, they have this like heartbreaking loss usually to the Chiefs. And it's just a cycle of rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. After that heartbreaking loss, they're always like, next year's our year. And then the new year comes in and like, this year's our year. And then they start off hot, and then they do this again. So this is just a cycle. And I'm just expecting Allen will be back to himself. So if you can hold, do. But if you don't have the confidence to do it, I definitely understand it. The fourth player on this list is Omarion Hampton. Look, he's not going to be coming back in time to do anything really significant, and I definitely understand that this is a fine trade out. It may be the opportunity to use that equity that you gained off him to move up to a Saquon or maybe a Kyron Williams, although because Kyron's got his bye in week 8, the move to Saquon would make a lot more sense, and to me is a season hold, but there's definitely some plates rattling there, and I'll explain why in just a moment, because Saquon is somebody who comes up. The next one down this list, though, is JJ McCarthy. Now, he's been traded out, not in droves, so, like, I get that. Because he's been sitting idle on your bench and other rookie QBs have been out there playing and earning, like Cam Ward and, most notably Jackson Dart, I definitely understand the desire to move up to one of them and maintain that, like, low investment in a player of that level. But, like, I just want to warn, McCarthy's only played 2 games, so he's currently sitting at season starting price, right? Opening day price. He's only played 2, so by the time he plays this game, we're going to immediately see a fluctuation in his value, and we'll see some cash generation out of him immediately, and we should expect him to stay as the starter for the rest of the year. There's no danger of them moving to Carson Wentz. McCarthy is the plan, right? So from there, he then also becomes somebody who they've had their bye, and McCarthy will be somebody who will continue to play and earn you money, but he should be able to play at a level that will give you confidence to run him out 1 week if you're in that position where you've got a big value quarterback who's going to have a bye week coming up. So to me, this trade out of McCarthy, I understand it. I don't like it, and I don't like it for that reason that what are you trading out to? Another low-cost rookie who's got some cash generation, already got some of those runs on the board. Well, it's costing you to buy into them, and McCarthy's likely to do a bunch of that organically anyway. So to me, if you had him already, he was a good hold for me. I get why people are doing it. I just don't like it. The next one on this list is Lamar Jackson, right? He has been hurt. He has missed a couple of games already, and now he's faced with the bye week. And there's plates rattling about whether he'll even be ready to start the week 8. So, like, that's a difficult position to be in, to be missing him and also on the Buy-Mageddon week. He's such a high cost, and I get the mentality of selling him, but you just need to make sure you leave yourself a way back to him, I think, because while we came into the season, he was one of the most expensive players, might have been the most expensive player in all of SuperCoach. To leave him, potentially to me, means leaving somebody who we pretty unanimously expect to be a top 2 or 3 quarterback, especially when you look at it in terms of how many points they score per game that they start. And SuperCoach is a weekly sport about scoring points. So, like, we've got in the range of $300 million, and I think generally most people have done enough cash generating to put themselves at or above that $300 million price range. So Lamar Jackson is costing roughly toward 10% of your entire roster. So to sell out of him leaves you flush with cash, but really it doesn't matter how much cash you've got if you're not scoring the points. And Lamar Jackson is definitely a cheat code to a lot of points. So if you are doing this move, and I don't love it because, again, I'm nervous about using trades where it's not super necessary. If you'd already made the move, you probably got out ahead of it. Now you've lost a lot of money on Lamar Jackson. I kind of feel like you almost have to stay in the flames. But if you can hold him, there's a lot of people moving out. If you're one of them, maybe it might be worth reconsidering. The next one on this list I mentioned before too, because I'm concerned about this one. Saquon is not high on this list, and it's only a few hundred super coaches who are selling out of Saquon. But trading him out, to me, I'm not sure there's a lot of ways that trading him out while he's healthy makes a lot of sense to me, because to me, Saquon remains one of these players at running back who's likely to go from having been a bit disappointing in the last couple of weeks to being amazing, given his upcoming schedule of like zoo exhibit defenses that can't stop, a drunk toddler, let alone one of the greatest running backs in the game. It's the sort of player that you want to own as it is. And in terms of points per game for the rest of the stretch, we expect Saquon to be better than advertised, right? He's had a couple of lean weeks, and he also hasn't had his bye yet. But to me, if you're in the Saquon business, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me to sell out of him, because at some stage you're going to see him boom and you're going to want to be back in the Saquon business. And I don't know that moving out of him to go and pick up a Cam Scatterbo and save a couple of bucks, or someone who's on the emergence like that, makes a lot of sense when you're going to want to find your way back to Saquon anyway. So to me, he would have been a stronghold. Last one on this list is Tyler Loop. He was that rookie kicker that the Ravens picked up this year after their long association with Justin Tucker ended, who had a bit of an inglorious end to his kicking career, but also a couple of personal issues off the field which put him in trouble. And Tyler Loop came in at bargain basement. He was the cheapest kicker in the game. He earned you a bunch of money. He's now on bye. Cut him. He's earned you a bunch of money, but you still need a kicker. This is one that makes complete sense to me, and I understand that maybe this number is only low because so many people had gone into him on the ground level, and if you didn't, there wasn't any point going back to him, because, again, you're moving a trade on a kicker. So, like, if you're moving on him, you probably want to move to somebody that you feel like you can pretty much hold the rest of the way, because you don't want to be burning multiple trades on a kicker. And when you think about it in terms of, over the course of the season, we got 26 trades. Each trade is 4% of your total trades for the year, roughly, right? Well, to move him at, between $3 and $6 million from the jump he's made, he's contributing 2% of your total budget, and you don't want to have to be like then moving back in on a position of such, it's not the most important. It's likely not going to win you or lose you your week. So if you can just get a guy who's relatively rock solid here for the rest of the way, I wouldn't be seeking to trade back into Loop. All right, let's move into the guys who are traded in, and very few wide receivers are worthy of trading in the way that JSN is worth trading in. We call him that. His name's Jackson Smith-Njigba. He's the great wide receiver at Seattle. And to me, there's a few things that are great about him. He's matchup proof. He's got a -2 break even, and he's yet to disappoint super coaches, which is great. He's got a bye week next week. So not this one, but next week. So before you make a move into him, consider, how many players have I got in my squad from the Rams, Seahawks, Raiders, Jags, Lions, or Cardinals at wide receiver and running back? They're the two deepest positions, and they each only have 2 bench spots. What we need to do is make sure that you prioritize coverage for those weeks, right? Because what you don't want to be doing is trading into Jackson Smith-Njigba that's putting you into a big hole for the following week. So this is very roster specific about how you manage that, but to see everyone trading into him is great. He's got all these redeeming qualities and things that you think, this is great for SuperCoach. It's great for cash generation. It's great for everything, for points, and great for a season hold. But do be careful, because this coming week, we've talked about it a bunch of times, there are so many people not going to be around in these next couple of weeks. You don't want to be digging a bigger hole. What is great to see too is the second most traded player in is Patrick Mahomes. Mate, I'm old enough to remember when he was an excellent fantasy asset, and it's felt weird that the last 2 years he hasn't been. Now all of a sudden he is back to being a large part of his own fantasy, his old fantasy self. And he's not doing it by, throwing 5 touchdowns and 400 yards, but he's doing other things that bring value, like rushing touchdowns, which are worth 12 instead of 8, and he's getting rushing yards, which you have to make so few of them to get the same amount of points as you do for passing yards. And if you can get a quarterback who runs, it's amazing that you can just kind of score for both. He is currently $25 million though, and those folks who bought into him a couple of weeks ago before he hit this kind of money when he was about $22 million are looking pretty smart, right? Because they'll be able to hang on to Mahomes for quite some time. But if you are going to buy into him, I can see that it is a pretty straight swap for Josh Allen, who's pretty much the same money. Just be warned that Josh Allen's on the bye now, and Mahomes still has his bye to come. So there will be a week in there where you'll have to decide how you're going to fix it if you're not going back to Josh Allen. And to me, this trade is a trade in only for a season hold. I don't think you're then planning on sending Mahomes away. If you're spending $25 million on him now, you're pretty much going to stay the course. The next one on this list is Jackson Dart. Now, this guy's been a bit of a revelation at quarterback and has come a long way in not much time at all. He's got this attractive, negative 33 break even, which pretty much means he has to get hit by a meteorite after fumbling 70 times before anything could possibly go wrong. So it's hard to ignore, and he's obviously going to keep making you money. But I can't imagine a world where you're starting him unless it's in a 1 week pinch where your starter's away. Nobody's going to be trotting him out there week in, week out as their number one quarterback. So I'd avoid making this move as just because for the cash generation, because that 3.1 million, again, we talked about this before, it's like $1 million. It's like a percentage of 1% of your entire roster's value. And this trade is, again, about 4% of your moves for the year. And by this stage of the year, it must feel like more because you've used some already. So you've only got so many left, and we've still got so much to navigate. So it's one of those moves that I wouldn't be doing it just for the money. Next one on the list is Drake London. He came into the year as one of the weirdly mid-price players, that $13 million range, because he had a good enough season, but also he wasn't a superstar like you see from Amon-Ra and Puka and that sort of level. He has had 2 good showings either side of his bye week, and it does make him an attractive candidate, especially because that minus 11 break even's pretty hard to sort of walk past. Taylor and I have been talking about this, and he has been getting a lot of targets in his last couple of starts. We say targets are an earned stat because to get a target, generally you have to be putting yourself in a position where you are worthwhile to throw to compared to everybody else who's out there at the same time, right? And just being who you are, if you're the number one receiver on a team, there's a great chance that more of the playbook is designed to get you personally in a position where you are the main target because you are more skillful than the people around you. So this makes sense because he's definitely the best player on that offense for Michael Penix to aim at. But beware a little bit, right? He has had his bye, so that's great news, but there are other reasonably, decent players in that offense who have been missing and will return soon. Now, I don't expect everyone listening to this podcast to know that Darnell Mooney and Ray Cloud have these roles in that offense, and these guys aren't household names. Your mum doesn't know who these people are the way that she knows who Patrick Mahomes is, right? But they are fair players, and they do have roles, and when they are in this offense day to day, they are also going to command a share. That probably means London's is a little bit inflated at the moment. Just outside of Kyle Pitts, the third target in that offense from the receiving core this week was, I don't even know. You'd have to fucking go and dig up a program to find out who that is. So just beware that, especially this week, this is kind of one of those perfect storm weeks, and that you might not see something like this again from Drake London. But that said, he should still have a very steady role going forward for the rest of the year. Question here I've got for you too is, how far have the wheels turned on a single player? Just a couple of weeks ago, Jamar Chase was a sell, right? 2-3 weeks ago, and I felt pretty clever getting out of him a couple of weeks ago before the Jake Browning effect took its full impact on his fantasy value. But super coaches everywhere must be rejoicing because Joe Flacco and his 41-year-old shoulder, he's got grey hairs on that, by the way, found a way to feed the ball to Jamar Chase. I got him 2 tutties this week. Come on. At $18 million, though, I'd be a little nervous to make this move so quickly given how few redeeming qualities are in this offense. Like, it is the ugliest kid at the party, right? And that this is not the Joe that we were expecting, right? We're expecting Joe Burrow, who's clearly a very good quarterback, young, in his physical prime, and this Joe Flacco is minutes away from becoming a divorce attorney, right? So this guy being the 5th most traded in, Jamar Chase, that is, you know, it's a good sign for Jamar Chase, but it means that people aren't droving towards this. It's not like we've got some flash mob turning up to get Jamar Chase in their lineup. No one's stepping over their own grandmother to get him in. But he is a small trade up from where we've recently seen Emeka Egbuka die, so he's only a couple of mil above that. So I guess this is why he could be easily moved into. I just don't expect salad days like this week to be the norm, and this week is a good show for that because passing isn't how you tend to get it done against their next opponent, Pittsburgh. And Joe Flacco may find himself under a little bit more duress this week. So I think this is going to be very matchup dependent. And for $18 million, I'm not super interested in matchup dependent. The 6th guy on this list is a guy named Kamani Vidal. Who the hell is Kamani Vidal? Reasonable question. He's about the 55th running back that we've seen in this LA Chargers backfield since practically everybody who's had the job before him has had some voodoo curse and has died an extraordinarily excruciating and painful death. Very similar to what's happening in Arizona at the moment. But Kamani Vidal is a really reasonable trade in this week for super coaches who recently lost Hampton and are willing to trade down in cost at running back to premiumise another starting spot. You know Vidal is going to continue to get the work, right? And he'll continue to bring that very nectar which we as super coaches desire. Points, because like he's got the role, and cash, because he's like $4 million. So it's all in one place, all in one house, and while not millions of people are doing this trade, it's kind of a good one too, because the Chargers will help get you through this like buy-mageddon of the next 2 weeks, because they don't go on bye till week 12. So he's a pretty appealing candidate to use as a spot start over these like really heavy weeks where you might be missing somebody just for the 1 week who's high cash, because you know Vidal's going to have a great opportunity to replace a lot of those points. The last 2 guys on this list are also running backs, and they come in such different ways. Cam Scatterboo comes in 7th or most traded in, and this is really just those who missed making that earlier move, because he's a lot trickier to buy in now at 13 mil, and we've likely seen his high watermark in points for the season last week. Like, he's not doing that again. It's so unlikely, right? And he's going to do well to make enough money over the next month or so to keep him at that value too. So you can get better starters at this kind of cost, and he's quite expensive to sit on your bench for extended period of times. Like, I get that minus 10 break even is really attractive, but to me it's not the be all and end all, and I'm glad that this is like a low member of the bring him in club, because I understand that minus 10 is a lot, but it's not everything, and really I think it's the only attractive thing about him at the moment. The volume is good, but it's not, you know, Bijan or Saquon or McCaffrey good, and his cost is, you know, not Kamani Vidal cheap. So he's just kind of awkward, and I'm not a big fan of it. Our 8th and final guy on the trade-in list is Bijan Robinson, and the reason I say these guys come from different parts of the tree is because Bijan's at $22 million, and I'm hoping it's largely those who are moving out of Saquon, right? But he was pretty low on the out list, and Bijan's pretty low on the in list. So I'm hoping what's happening here is that it's just a couple of people who are a bit disenchanted with how things have been going for Saquon. And yes, I did say disenchanted. That's not how I usually talk. I'm from the south of Queanbeyan. I should be saying disenchanted, mate. But there you go. I've done it now. This is not a move I'd recommend really anyway, because you're going to eat $4 to $5 million moving out of Saquon at sort of 17 million up to Bijan at 22, and I'm going to expect Saquon's back in that 20 plus range soon enough, right? So buying Bijan, yeah, it's good, but selling Saquon is bad, right? So like, don't do one for the other. Do it so you can have both. I understand that a break even of just 5 for Bijan at his price point is super appealing, but his ceiling for value growth isn't really that high. Like, how much higher can he go? And it doesn't give you a points edge on Saquon, given what I'm expecting for him in the same neck of the woods here these next couple of weeks. And that cash range in general, I don't think Bijan's much more likely to outstrip any of them. So if you're moving out of one of the big guys just to bring him in, I don't know that I really get it. I do think part of the appeal here is that you've gotten him after his bye week, and if you have, and you're making this move, you just have to fucking start him every week for the rest of the year. There's no questions. You can't now trade out of Bijan. You have to stay with him. All right, hopefully that's done enough for our most traded in, our most traded out. Usually that's a segment that I think Taylor does really, really well, and I just kind of get to have my opinions on as a secondary. So for me to be carrying the mail this week, I'm not usually the lead running back here, guys, so be gentle on me. Hopefully that was helpful. From our biggest mailbag last week to no mailbag this week. What? Yeah, we're missing Taylor, and he's the big driver of our mailbag engagement. So at short notice, when Tay was sort of drawn away from the podcast this week, we kind of missed that wave that he would usually start to harvest the goods from our community of super coaches. So don't make it feel like that means you can't get them answered. It just means I don't have them on the podcast, right? So if you're on Instagram, find me at Matty Podcast. I'll respond personally to each and every one on Instagram, I promise. You can also find our Aussie NFL fantasy page on Facebook and message me there too, because I get all those messages, and again, I'll come back to each and every one of them. So that's it. Instagram or Facebook, you got no excuses to not send me your questions. Another thing we like to do generally is talk about our trades each week. Now, Tay is not here, off writing a new album because he's going to get married to Travis Kelce. Oh, I've got the wrong Tay. Okay, my Tay is away because of other things. But let me tell you about my trades, because this week, mate, I had a howler. I had all those great names that you know and love kind of throw up stinkers. Puka, because he was in and out of the game. Haven't had Mike Evans in my team. And then, there was a bunch of disappointments out there. James Cook seemingly can't get it done the way he used to. Josh Allen made my life a lot harder. So one thing we do know here is, I've moved Lamar Jackson a couple of weeks ago, and this week, I confessed earlier, I got out of the Josh Allen business to make the sideways move to Patrick Mahomes. Now, I'm really happy because I've got JJ McCarthy on my bench, and I'm so happy to trot him out there in the week that Mahomes is off in week 10, and that will help me navigate these next 2 weeks where a third of the league is away, right? Mahomes in week 7, week 8, week 9, McCarthy in week 10. Why am I happy with McCarthy in week 10? One, he's going to make me some money. He's going to have played some games between now and then. And he's up against the dreadful, piss-poor, shithouse, asshole Ravens defense. And that's going to make me so happy because it's the 1 week I need him to start. And he's going to get the money for jam, bottomless pit of points Ravens defense. And then I can just shove him back onto my bench again where he's going to continue to score points and earn me money. So this is my strategy. And I think that move is simple to make. The other move was pretty simple, and it saw me just move Ibuka, who's been, I've been joining the masses there, sliding out of him to bring in Drake London. That one seems like a pretty straightforward swap because the cash is not terribly different, and it leaves me feeling pretty happy because, as I said before, I've been sitting on Mike Evans. Bring him back in, and it gives me an opportunity to also bring CeeDee Lamb back up. My week 8 bye players have now also been whittled down to just having Puka and Amon-Ra out. And it's pretty good because, then all of a sudden my other starters are guys like Cortland Sutton and Tech McMillan, and I've got no problem starting either of them. They're both getting great target shares, and there's no problems. So here we are, 6 weeks in, and with any luck, you're setting sail into future weeks with me not just being solo, right? Next week, in absence of Tay, then we're going to still have a great guest come in and talk a bunch of SuperCoach, and the best case scenario is that we have Taylor back. But in the meantime, SuperCoaches, thank you again for all the support you've given us here at SuperCoach Halfa. It is much more fun when we've got 2 heads on, so we're going to try and make sure we can give you that, whether it's Taylor or an excellent guest who we've got lined up who can pinch hit for us next week should we need. But also, SuperCoaches, make sure you get into that SuperCoach Halfa podcast league. You'll find that code to enter is here wherever you found this podcast in the show notes. So tap on that and you'll get the number. But just again, it is 962235. The winner of the Aussie NFL SuperCoach Halfa contest there is going to go ahead and pick themselves up a whole bunch of cool swag, including a custom NFL jersey of your favorite player, any player you want, and also a whole bunch of AGN swag. So get on it. Go find it. Once again, we're going to get out of here for another week. Make sure you catch me, a Big Kev, the Croc Hunter Patterson, this week on the Aussie NFL Fantasy Show. And we've got a great guest coming on there. You can also catch the guys from G'day Gridiron. They were around earlier in the week with their reactions to that wild Week 6. And they'll be back on the weekend to talk a whole bunch of predictions, games they must watch, and all the bloody best bets before Monday Night Football as well over on G'day Gridiron. You find it all here on the Aussie Gridiron Network. In the meantime, my name's Matty C, and I've talked an awful lot in the last little while, so you're probably bored of me. I'll catch you later on. Hooroo!
SuperCoach Halfa, get your edge, get it faster. Taylor leads, Matty's laughter. NFL SuperCoach Halfa. SuperCoach Halfa, get your edge, get it faster. Taylor leads, Matty's laughter.